Rockets pursuing Jimmy Butler in a second, but first check out Ohio State commit G. Scott Jr. Another great one-handed catch.
Oh, I got to coach him up.
Back-to-back plays. Look at that.
That's nasty. That's nasty. I got to coach him up. You see right here, he's wide open. He's got to run back into the field. We call stacking the defensive back. You make the defensive back run behind you, then you don't have to push off on him. Right here, go back into the field. Then you don't have to use your arm like that because there's a ref right there next to you.
That's OPI.
Yeah, I got a pretty good receiver coach, Brian Hartline, Ohio State, gonna get that fixed. Buckeyes, let's do this.
All right, next up, Jordan Kilgannon. Another original.
Come on, man, what is this?
Look at this.
It's called a reverse 360 scorpion. Well, I mean,
that's nasty.
This guy.
That's the most impressive dunk that we've seen. Commissioner of the NBA, we need this. Open competition. We need dudes off the street, 3 to 5 of them, 5 of your best dunkers. NBA All-Star Weekend. Let's put it's a challenge.
And Dwight Howard told us if they do that, he might come back for the competition.
Yeah, and Paul.
All right, let's talk about the Rockets. Yesterday, we discussed at length the reported friction between their two stars, James Harden and Chris Paul. Well, how about adding another intense star to the mix? According to reports, Houston will aggressively pursue Jimmy Butler in free agency. Nick, would Jimmy Butler make the Rockets title contenders?
All right, so I mentioned yesterday, much to the chagrin of many of people on the internet, that I consider myself a bit of an amateur capologist. But even anyone can look at the Rockets cap sheet and say, okay, the only way they can add Jimmy Butler is by subtracting either Chris Paul or Eric Gordon and someone else. They do not have the space to just sign Jimmy Butler. So people need to understand.
So Jimmy Butler's not going back to Houston for a hometown discount.
No.
He's from the state of Texas.
It's from Tomball, Texas, right north of Houston, about 45 minutes north of Houston. No, I mean, the only way you do this is if you are losing players on your roster, significant players on your roster. I don't think Jimmy Butler, and I know the Rockets last year tried to add him in a trade. Remember, they offered Eric Gordon reportedly 4 first-round picks to try to continue to just go for it, go for it, go for it. And I talked with Daryl Morey at length yesterday about a number of things. This didn't come up. That's probably my mistake. But at some point, my pal Daryl, I would think, recognizes while you do want to add as many, as he would put it, Team USA guys as possible, personalities do matter. And this would be another combustible, bullheaded, my way personality guy in a locker room that I don't know needs that right now. And so I don't know that he makes you good enough, given what you would have to subtract, given the potential added friction in the locker room. If I could swap him out for Chris Paul 1-for-1 at this point, would I do it? Yes, of course. Do I think that would make the Rockets better? I do, and I think they're already championship contenders as is, but I don't think that is going to be available. I think Chris Paul and Harden are going to be on the roster no matter what. And so then you add another guy, you lose kind of a steadying force in Eric Gordon. You potentially have to lose Clint Capella, or at least you lose some bench pieces. I don't think PJ Tucker is touchable. I do think he's somewhat untouchable because of the value he has for them. I just don't see how this works. I don't see how this fits. It's not the move I would anticipate Houston's going to try to make.
And to me, Eric Gordon has made himself into a glue guy. I know in some of the reports they had Eric Gordon at the end of the season. He was unhappy too because he had a good season, even in James Harden with all the isolation. So I don't believe Jimmy Butler is a good fit. It's like, to me, if I was having problems in my relationship, would I go to Jimmy Butler as a counselor? Don't think so. But I think Jimmy Butler's opportunity is greater for a title in Philadelphia. Let's not forget, the second round, they lose a buzzer beater to the world champs in Kawhi. Like, they were in command of that series a couple times. And if he goes back there, his leadership, you could see Joel Embiid, you could see Ben Simmons. To me, this was the best fit to Jimmy Butler since the first time Jimmy Butler really came onto the national stage when he was there in Chicago. So, no, I believe he would be moving sideways or down because the roster in Houston, it has to be dismantled to be able to put him on the roster.
Do you anticipate Jimmy Butler will go back to Philadelphia? When you're looking at Jimmy Butler and the options that he has, the places that he may want to go to, who he will meet with, where do you think that
I think Philly makes a ton of sense, and I want to give Jimmy Butler credit because while he has been prickly in Chicago and Minnesota, he seemed to be on his best behavior in Philadelphia. He accepted his role willingly, where all of a sudden, for the first time since he became Jimmy Butler, he had a much lessened offensive role, but he accepted his role of, I'm going to be leader defense through 3 quarters, try to take over in the 4th, and I thought he was really good in the playoffs. Tobias Harris, to me, is the big question for Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia is incentivized to keep him, and I think Butler's incentivized to stay.
One thing you pointed out, too, when they were in the playoffs, remember Joel Embiid was sick, injured, didn't know what. Remember after the games, every press conference, Jimmy Butler sat next to Joel Embiid. And when you have that type of influence on the great player compared to going into the combustible situation that they have in Houston, why would Jimmy Butler do that? I know he might want to go back to Texas and be able to play basketball there. And yes, they do have championship aspirations. But in Philadelphia, where he is now, this point in his career, like even in Philadelphia, man, he can take several nights off, several quarters off with Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons is only going to get better. So I think staying where he is a better fit for a championship aspirations than moving to Houston.
And I don't think the Rockets are going to make major overhauls to their roster. They have all 5 starters under contract. One of the things I got very clearly, whether people can disagree with it, but from Daryl Morey and my long conversation with him yesterday is he does not think they are far away. He doesn't. He thinks that 2 years ago they were right there, and last year these are not his words. These will be mine.
But realistic, you're 1 round further. And Kevin Durant got hurt in that series.
Yes.
And what you saw from them, not only this year, but last year, games 5, 6, and 7. This year, games 5, 6, it's still the same thing. So, yes, Golden State, the NBA's coming back to the Golden State. They're coming back to the rest of the NBA. But really, how close is Houston when you got AD and LeBron that you're going to have to deal with?
Is the Butler component a defensive thing, too? Let's say Jimmy Butler isn't the guy that goes there, but the small moves that Houston may need to make, do you think they need to be defensive-minded in the personnel that they bring in?
The Rockets made a couple moves last year that were the wrong moves. They brought in Carmelo Anthony. That was the wrong move. Daryl sat here and said that. They also brought in Iman Shumpert. That did not work out. You bring in Iman Shumpert because obviously he does some of the things Jimmy Butler does, just not nearly as well. It is the same type of player. So yes, I think they were smart not to overpay to keep Trevor Ariza, but that type of player is, of course, exactly what they need, what they were missing. And this year, they will have their exception. They'll have their starters back. And unlike last year, since they avoided the tax last year, they will go into the tax this year. They will. I can guarantee you that. I'm very confident that the Rockets are going to have, unless they make some massive trade like this, all their starters back, their coach back, and they're going to be a tax team that tries to add because they believe, rightly or wrongly, their championship window is very open right now.
Yeah, well, more free agency talk on the way, that's for sure. Coming up is Kevin Durant going to re-sign with the Warriors. That's next on First Things First.
Hey, Jason, can you get a close-up on that hair, please?
No, we don't need to do that,
seriously.
Jason.
Get in there tight. There you go, dog. He's a star, man.